We've been hearing the phrase spiritual reboot a lot in the last 2 years whenever 343 talks about Halo Infinite. But what does that mean? An open world more akin to that of Halo CE's second mission Halo? And if so, does that mean a massive interconnected open world like Breath of the Wild or an Elder Scrolls game? Or more like Destiny, where the world is segmented into separate destinations that the player can return to, and maybe even support a post-campaign endgame? Hey there, I'm Pfhorbear, and today we're going to look at Halo Infinite's box art and try to glean some information about Halo Infinite's campaign, what kind of an open world Halo Infinite might have, a potential endgame, and what this strange structure might be in conjunction with that endgame. Let's begin. Halo Infinite is being advertised by 343 as a spiritual reboot to the Halo franchise. Not a full reset like 2019's Call of Duty Modern Warfare, but more akin to that of 2018's God of War, which presented a strong change to the game's formula while also serving as a sequel to the previous entries in the series. I fully believe in this approach to Halo Infinite, a sequel to Halo 5, and I'll be touching on what I think that campaign could look like in a later video as far as story is concerned, but also bringing Halo into a brave new world with a new approach to its core game, how it evolves into a potential open world, and supporting new endgame content. The first part of that is an open world. Now, it's no secret that I'm a Destiny fan, and obviously I'd love to see a Halo game that tries to capture some of that one day, but I think Halo Infinite's campaign can support a Destiny-style approach to an open world in having several large hub worlds or destinations on the Halo ring, of which I believe to be Zeta Halo. More on that in a bit. What do these hub worlds or destinations look like? Well, instead of a massive, interconnected open world, we get Destiny planet-sized locations to explore and dissect. Think Destiny's Destinations. You launch the campaign for the first time, watch the opening cutscene, and get control of Chief. There you are, on Zeta Halo, the ring's horizon cascading up into the deep blue of the atmosphere, and then a waypoint. The pilot thinks he sees a Forerunner structure that could be important. You head there, and on your way, you're treated to the pilot asking if you'd like some wheels. You press the back button on your controller and call in a Warthog, which is on a cooldown, and take off into the horizon. This is Halo Infinite, an open sandbox that isn't restricted with a soft kill barrier. Instead, you can go straight to your objective marker or go exploring and learn more about this ring you find yourself on. You stumble upon some ancient human settlements that have been all but lost to the sands of time. Hieroglyphics that are carved into the side of a cave, a terminal Forerunner in origin, but one that contains the recordings and memories of those ancient humans who came before. You make your way back to the waypoint, shooting your way through banished and Forerunner enemies, only to complete the mission and move on from there. This is how I see Halo Infinite's campaign working. As you advance through the campaign, more and more of these destinations open up, available to explore at your own pace and to complete the campaign as you see fit. Once all is said and done, you've rescued humanity and saved the day. The game doesn't end there. You're treated to a fully open and realized world to explore, and Brohammer is there waiting to ferry you off to whichever section of the Halo ring you'd like to revisit and explore. But there's even more to do. A hero's work is never done after all. Halo 4's Spartan Ops was a classic example of a great idea with less than great execution. Those of us that played it to completion were treated with a post-Halo 4 campaign story, but 343 played it safe and only dedicated relatively few resources to the project, replacing the players and situations back into sections of the campaign or even on some of the multiplayer maps, rather than developing a whole new separate campaign for the Spartan Ops experience. Don't get me wrong, I understand just how daunting of a task it could be to develop two separate campaigns for one game, but the approach to an open world that I outlined earlier would alleviate a large amount of the overhead work needed to be done in comparison to a more linear game. Sure, you'd still find yourself in many of the same locations, but much like Destiny, fewer full spaces would need to be developed in response to a continuation than if you'd built a fully realized world for the player to live in. This is why I propose a second crack at Spartan Ops. We'll call it Halo Infinite Endgame. I know it's a little obvious of a name, but for the sake of the argument, it gets the point across fine enough. Halo Infinite Endgame is a continuation of the Halo Infinite story. We saw some of this with Spartan Ops, wherein Halo 5 is essentially more of a continuation of that story at times, to a fault, than it is a continuation of Halo 4 itself. We also see some of this in Halo 5's DLC maps, where Cortana's created faction has a hand in the description for Riptide specifically, which you can see on screen now. I decided not to read all of this to you because it would take longer than I'd like, so feel free to pause the video and catch up if you are unfamiliar. I believe that purpose-building content like this will give us a way to continue the story after Chief's story arc has ended in Infinite. This new mode will give players the ability to engage the world in a new way with their custom-built multiplayer Spartans in new story missions, potential side quests, as well as a true endgame in the Palace of Pain, which myself and others in the community believe this structure is that can be found on the game's key art, all with a fire team of their best friends and random players populating the Halo ring as you explore. This could be periodically expanded upon, giving Halo Infinite life long after the campaign ends, and giving players a second, more social hour-style outlet in the Halo universe besides the typical multiplayer suite. After all, the Slipspace engine was built for faster creative iteration. But what is the Palace of Pain, and what significance can it hold for an endgame? Let's take a look at that. Anyone who has ever played an MMO like World of Warcraft or Destiny, or a shared world shooter like The Division or Warframe, is familiar with the concepts of a raid. Raids are typically larger than normal groups of players all working towards a unified goal, typically culminating in a larger than life final boss that will test not only your group's mettle, but also your friendships. These raids include fun and frustrating challenges along the way that make these experiences my favorite in all of gaming. It's hard to think of incentives for content like this, don't get me wrong, but giving a raid in a Halo game something like exclusive armor sets, or emblems, or other cool cosmetic items are incentive enough for me personally, and the Palace of Pain is lore built to be the ideal place for this. To answer the actual question, what is the Palace of Pain, we go back to Greg Bear's Forerunner novels. In Halo Primordium, we learn of Zeta Halo, Installation 07's true intent. While obviously a part of the Halo array, it was not built at the lesser arc like all the other Halo installations that we get to see in Halo 3, also known as Installation 00, but was instead constructed at the greater arc. It was originally 3 times larger than most Halo rings, measuring 30,000 kilometers in diameter instead of 10,000 kilometers, later reducing itself in size to be in line with the other installations. And, like the other Halo rings, was used as a sort of biological preserve as part of the conservation measure put into effect by the Forerunner Lifeworkers. Installation 07 was especially important to us because it was focused on the preservation of humanity. Should the Halo rings ever be fired, and fired they certainly were, humanity would go on living because of the efforts of the Lifeworkers. Unfortunately, there was a problem. A Forerunner known as Master Builder Pfhorbear began to experiment on the humans on Installation 07 because during the Forerunner Flood conflict, it seemed that humans were immune to the Flood. 60 years after Pfhorbear's experiments, the Halo array was charged to an AI or Ancilla known as Mendicant Bias. There, the Palace of Pain would be used to torture and force the Flood infection onto the human prisoners to find out if there was truly an immunity that humanity was believed to possess. Mendicant Bias would later come into contact with an even more ancient being known as the Primordial. This Primordial, or the Captive as it was also known, is believed to be both the last of the precursors and the very first Gravemind. It was able to break down Mendicant Bias's defenses and convince him to side with it. Together, they unleashed the Flood on the Lifeworkers and the sentient life that was still inhabiting the ring at the time. The Palace of Pain makes for a great potential location for a raid. There are amazing story-driven opportunities to fight some incredible Flood enemies we've never seen before, and potentially get to explore one of the most obscure locations in Halo's lore. The potential of Infinite being set on Zeta Halo is very high, and we see the hints in spades on the cover art. The Halo's terrain shifting suggests Zeta Halo's shrinking size and ease of self-repair, the structure that we believe is the Palace of Pain, and that of all of the Halo rings left in the galaxy by the end of Halo Wars 2, the most recent game release, it's the one that we have the least amount of information on, and the one that has been studied the least by humanity. All of this is interesting, sure, but what about Halo Sandbox? How can the weapons fit into all of this? And what about moment-to-moment beats? Halo is built to support this kind of freedom. Don't forget, we're going to have our good buddy Brohammer with us on this journey, so what does that look like? I believe that Halo can support this hub world / large exploration-driven content. If we have Brohammer and we can essentially summon a Warthog, like I had mentioned earlier, I don't think it's crazy to think that we could have a system for calling down ammunition and other necessities as you complete certain objectives and kill enemies. Maybe we're not fighting human enemies, but we can stumble across caches and other things that have been left behind or thrown from ships. We could easily pick up enemy weapons, and in the event we run completely dry on ammo, we can call down a shipment of a loadout we selected before dropping into this mode. My buddy Chris of the Dead asked me in the Sacred Icon Halo Discord on Saturday how I think Infinite could incorporate Halo Sandbox into this massive open world design we're all theorizing, and if each BR, AR, Magnum, Needler, etc. are all the exact same like they are in the previous games, or if it might incorporate Halo 5's Warzone Rex style weapons with different attachments or purposes to give you a leg up in situations where they're needed. And while I don't think we'd need something like that to be implemented, I can see it being an important part of exploration. This also harkens back to my Halo 3 equipment system returning too. This could be an interesting way to incentivize using weapons for certain types of engagements, and introducing cool campaign-specific weapons and variants, and making them difficult to find to introduce yet another layer of replayability. Like I said, not necessary, but it could be cool to see that played around with a little bit. That brings us to the end. What do you want to see from Infinite's campaign? Do you want something more linear like the previous Bungie games? More of an interconnected open world? Or do you like the idea of destinations within the Halo ring that you can play, revisit, and continue to play through endgame content and periodic expansions? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, or if you hated it. In my last video, I said I would read off some of my favorite comments in this one, and the support still absolutely blows me away. With over 22,000 total views in the last 4 weeks, 400 subscribers as of me sitting down to record this video, and over 400 comments on my last 4 videos alone, you guys are absolutely shattering my expectations. Here are just a few of my favorite comments from last week's video. Reticle says, I just discovered your channel. Great stuff. Keep it up. Thanks, Reticle. I appreciate that. 1993 DJC says, I agree with everything in your what I want list. All 5. Here's to hoping that that's what we get. I agree with you. I have to be honest. It is, of course, my list, so maybe I'm biased, but I also like the list. Blue Banana says, Halo could learn from Doom of how to speed up gameplay without movement abilities. I totally agree, Blue Banana. I think that Halo could learn a lot from the modern take on Doom's playbook. I think that they have done a wonderful job in keeping the gameplay fast-paced and engaging without introducing a ton of new, sometimes gameplay-altering movement options. Doom still doesn't have sprint. Moochie Ball says, I've never felt more stupid when I miss a Spartan charge in Slayer. I'm right there with you, buddy. Shade says, I'm pretty hard to disappoint with Halo Infinite because my favorite multiplayers are Halo 3, Halo 5, and Halo CE, and I legitimately couldn't order them because I love them equally, so any combination of those would be dope. I have to say that I agree for the most part. Halo 2 is obviously in there as well for me, but honestly, if Halo Infinite is just the best parts of all of the previous Halo games, all put together in one package, I'm not going to complain. Stay Creative Painting with Ryan O'Rourke says, loved how you went over everything. Would also be very happy to play your ideal version of Infinite. Again, great job. I'm subbing. Smiley face. Thank you so much, Ryan O'Rourke. It means a lot, man. Seriously. Noble J says, this guy deserves more subscribers. This was a great video. Hey, I really appreciate you saying that, Noble J. Share it with your friends and tell your mom for me. Riley Fuller says, keep up the work, man. Awesome vid. Just got yourself another subscriber. Same thing, Riley. Thank you so much, and I hope that you stick around for more. I know you said you're subscribed already, but you know what I mean. Noah Orton says, bruh, you only have 300 subs? Not anymore, Noah. Your video quality suggests you're among the god tier of Halo YouTubers. Just saying. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. I do put a ton of time into my videos. All in all, over the last 4 videos, I've probably put in around 40 hours worth of work, so it really is appreciated. And finally, a bonus comment that really just made me laugh. I'm Jab says, I hope Halo Infinite has guns. Me too, buddy. Me too. That's all for now, guys. As always, you can catch me on Twitter at Pfhorbear, follow me on twitch.tv/Pfhorbear, and now you can even join my Discord server. You can find the link in the description box below for that. Until next time, be safe and have fun. I want to see Nate stop feeding in Infinite!